I should never have married an old woman like you. Younger women are so much better. I can't even walk with you in public, you embarrass me. If I could, I'd go back and start my life over. These are the words my ex-husband, Tom, said to me 10 years ago. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 48 years old. I married Tom when I was 33, and he was 5 years younger than me. I was a nurse, and we met at the hospital where I worked. Tom had just finished his residency and joined the hospital as a new doctor. He often asked me for help, and I found his innocence charming, so I supported him. Even though I was 5 years older and a nurse while he was a doctor, we eventually started dating because he kept talking to me every day, and I couldn't ignore him. After 2 years of dating, we got married. I was a little worried about the age difference, but Tom didn't seem to care, so I stopped worrying too. However, after 5 years of marriage, he began to insult me daily, saying he should have married someone younger. He would chat happily with younger nurses at the hospital, but I tried to ignore it since we were at work, and I didn't want to cause a scene. Then, one day, I found out Tom had been cheating on me. The other woman was a former patient, but I didn't know her because I worked in a different department. She was 10 years younger than me. Tom laughed and said, "It's no wonder we didn't have kids with someone old like you. My girlfriend is pregnant with my child." I couldn't stand to be with someone like Tom anymore, so I agreed to the divorce. I told him and his girlfriend that I would be asking for alimony, financial support. Tom got furious. "I was married to an old woman like you for 5 years, and you want alimony? I should be the one getting paid," he shouted. He didn't expect me to ask for money after his affair. Even Tom's father called me, saying it was normal for young men to be attracted to younger women. I was shocked. Tom refused to pay, so I had no choice but to get a lawyer. I couldn't just stay quiet after everything he did and said. The lawyer told me I had the right to ask for alimony, so I let them handle everything. I had heard that getting divorced is harder than getting married, and I truly felt that way. Thanks to the lawyer, I was able to move forward. I was able to get the alimony I deserved, end the lease on our shared apartment, and start living on my own. I also changed my last name from Evans back to my maiden name, Britton. The only good thing was that Tom switched to a new hospital. As his last remark, he said, "I wouldn't want to be stuck with a greedy old hag like you." He probably thought divorcing me for his mistress would upset people, but I was surprised he was already so prepared, with a new job lined up. Still, people talk. I couldn't escape the whispers about how I was dumped by my younger husband, and I felt like everyone was judging me. It made me paranoid, and the stress became too much. Eventually, I quit my job at the hospital. I spent some time feeling lost, but since I love working, I decided to find a new job. Luckily, I found a small maternity clinic nearby that was hiring nurses, and I got the job right away. It was a small, friendly place, with only a few doctors and nurses, but we all got along well. The patients and staff were kind, and my life started to feel peaceful again. My coworkers would say, "Miss Britton, you're so observant, and the patients really like you. We're lucky to have you." But my calm days didn't last. One day, a pregnant woman was referred to the clinic from another hospital. Her name was Sarah Evans, the same name as Tom's mistress. I checked, and sure enough, her husband was Tom Evans, a doctor. My ex-husband, Tom's hospital didn't have an obstetrics department, and they had just moved nearby, so they were referred to our clinic. Since I had changed back to my maiden name, Sarah didn't recognize me, and we had never met face to face. I couldn't believe I was running into them here, but I kept quiet. A few days later, Tom came to the clinic with his wife for her checkup. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. He hadn't expected to see me. I didn't want to see him either. "What are you doing here?" he asked, and his wife quickly realized who I was. She snapped, "Did you come here just to bother us?" I calmly replied, "Of course not. I work here. I had no idea you lived nearby." But Tom wouldn't listen and accused me of following them. "You're stalking us, aren't you? Trying to harass me?" "Don't be ridiculous," I said. "Why would I do that? You're just a greedy woman who squeezed money out of me after I left you for being old. Who knows what you'll do next?" he shouted. He said all of this in the examination room, and everyone heard. Now, everyone knew about my past with Tom, and I felt all their eyes on me. Even though I knew Tom was wrong, it was hard to face the situation. I felt really uncomfortable. "I'm scared. I feel like she's looking at me with bad intentions. What if something happens to my baby?" Tom's wife added to the drama, fake tears in her eyes. Tom then said firmly, "I don't know what she's capable of, so please keep her away from my wife." The doctor in charge asked me to leave the room. It wasn't because they suspected me, but it seemed like the only way to calm things down was for me to step out. I understood that patients come first, and I didn't want to stay either, but it still made me feel terrible. I started feeling uncomfortable around everyone, especially since I didn't want people to know the details of my divorce. To make things worse, Tom's wife kept coming back to the hospital and badmouthing me each time, although everyone knew I wasn't at fault. No one said anything because she was a pregnant patient and needed to be taken care of. They didn't want to stress her out or interfere in personal matters. This made things even harder for me, and I dreaded staying in that atmosphere. With more than 6 months until her due date, I couldn't imagine working there for that long under these conditions. Even though it was a good job, I decided to resign. The director seemed relieved, saying, "It's a shame, but there's nothing we can do." I felt like I was being punished even though I hadn't done anything wrong. Exhausted from everything, I didn't have the energy to look for a new hospital job, so I went back to my parents' home in the countryside. They welcomed me without asking questions. At first, I couldn't bring myself to do anything, but I soon felt guilty for just staying at home. So, I took a part-time job at a local supermarket. It was my first time working outside of a hospital, but it felt refreshing and gave me a much-needed change of pace. I loved being a nurse, but it came with the huge responsibility of caring for people's lives. There wasn't a single day I could relax. Being away from that pressure felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. 3 years after moving back home, the supermarket offered me a full-time position. My hard work had been noticed, and I was happy to accept the offer. 4 years later, a matchmaker approached me and asked, "Would you consider an arranged marriage?" Surprised, I said, "Excuse me?" The store manager, who suggested it, said, "I have the perfect person for you," but at 45, I had no plans of remarrying, so I politely declined. Still, the manager kept insisting. The other person was a 47-year-old divorcee like me, also divorced because of a cheating spouse. It happened to him 20 years ago. In the end, I couldn't say no to the meeting, and we agreed to meet in person, without any middleman. When I arrived at the restaurant, he was already there. As I walked in, he quickly stood up and bowed deeply but accidentally hit his forehead on the table. Ouch! His face turned red, and I couldn't help but laugh. It felt like something straight out of a comedy. "Hi, I'm James. Thank you for coming today," he said. "Nice to meet you, I'm Elizabeth," I replied. Thanks to his funny little accident, we quickly felt comfortable with each other. As we talked, he told me that he had asked for this arranged meeting because he fell in love with me at first sight when he visited our supermarket during a business trip. It turned out the store manager was his old college senior, and he helped set up the meeting. "I'd like to have a serious relationship, if possible," he said. I had planned to refuse, but somehow I couldn't say those words. Instead, I found myself wanting to see him again. After dating for 6 months, we decided to get married. Both my parents liked him and were genuinely happy for us. Living with my husband, who always thought of me first, was a true blessing. Since we were both older, we didn't plan on having kids. We just wanted to enjoy a peaceful life together, hand in hand. However, when I turned 48, my health started to decline. I went to the hospital for a checkup, thinking I was sick, but the doctor told me I wasn't just ill, I was pregnant. I never imagined getting pregnant at this age, and I had assumed my symptoms were something else, not morning sickness. I think my husband was just as shocked. When I told him, "It seems like there's a baby," he responded naturally, "That's great. So, who's the lucky one? Do I know them?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, you know them very well, they're right in front of you." "What? I'm the one who's pregnant," I added. My husband looked confused and stayed quiet for a moment. I thought to myself. The man I was set to meet was a 47-year-old divorcee, just like me. He had gone through a divorce because his spouse had cheated on him, which happened 20 years ago. In the end, I couldn't say no, and we agreed to meet directly, without using any go-between. When I arrived at the restaurant, he was already there. As I walked in, he quickly stood up and bowed, but accidentally hit his forehead on the table. Ouch! His face turned red, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was like something out of a comedy. "Hi, I'm James. Thank you for coming today," he said awkwardly. "Nice to meet you, I'm Elizabeth," I replied, still smiling. That little accident broke the ice, and we soon felt comfortable with each other. As we talked, I found out that this meeting happened because James had fallen in love with me at first sight when he visited the supermarket where I worked during a business trip. He had asked his old college friend, who was the store manager, to set up the meeting. I'd like to have a serious relationship, if possible, he said. I had come with the idea of turning him down, but I couldn't bring myself to say no. Instead, I found myself wanting to see him again. After dating for 6 months, we decided to get married. My parents really liked him, and they were happy for us. Living with James, who always thought of me and cared for me, was a true blessing. Since we were both older, we didn't plan to have children. We just wanted to live a peaceful life together. But when I turned 48, my health started to get worse. I went to the hospital for a checkup, thinking I was sick, but to my surprise, I found out I was pregnant. I never thought I would get pregnant at this age, and I didn't realize my illness was actually morning sickness. I think my husband was just as shocked. When I told him, "It seems like there's a baby," he smiled and said, "That's great. So, who's the lucky one? Do I know them?" I laughed and said, "Yes, you know them very well, they're standing right in front of you." "What? I'm the one who's pregnant," I explained. My husband looked confused and stayed quiet for a moment, clearly trying to process the news. "Since you're new to our hospital, you might not know, but I don't have any connection to you. Even so, what you just said was terrible, Mrs. Miles pointed out. I can't believe a doctor would say something like that." Just then, my husband arrived. "Sorry I'm late. My wife has been a great help to you," he said, noticing I was upset. Tom, looking pale, sensed something was wrong. "Is something wrong?" my husband asked. "I was just told by this man, Dr. Evans, that giving birth at 48 is disgusting," I explained. Hearing this, my usually calm husband's face changed instantly. He realized this was the same Dr. Evans, my ex-husband, that I had told him about. He knew Tom's name and occupation. "Are you Dr. Evans? Did you insult my wife?" my husband asked. Well that's..." Tom stammered. "What kind of hospital is this, where a doctor insults a patient? I can't trust my wife and unborn child to a place like this," my husband exclaimed. Just then, the nurse returned with the director. "I heard there was some rudeness," said the director. "My father recommended this hospital, but I can't believe a doctor like this works here. It seems we chose the wrong hospital," my husband said angrily. The director apologized. "I'm terribly sorry, that's not true. This man is not our doctor. I just fired him." "What?" Tom exclaimed. "I didn't know he was like this. I only hired him because a friend asked me to. We don't need a doctor who talks like that. He won't be here again," the director said firmly. Tom tried to protest, but the director silenced him. "Shut up and leave. Don't come near our hospital again." Tom was dragged out by another doctor, still shouting. The director apologized so much that we felt bad for him. We calmed down and sat back down, but my husband was still angry. "Did you fire him because my father donated to this hospital? If not, would you have let him stay?" The director shook his head. He explained that Tom had only been at the hospital for a week. Tom's father, who was an old classmate of the director, had begged him to give Tom a job. The director had no idea Tom would act like this and apologized again. "It's not like all the doctors here are like Tom. In fact, the obstetrician here is very good. If Tom wasn't around, I'd be happy to have the baby here," I said. My husband agreed. A few days later, Tom contacted us, begging for help. "Could you talk to the director and get me rehired? If you ask, they might reconsider," he pleaded. Apparently, Tom had been fired from many hospitals due to his bad attitude, and his father had warned him this was his last chance. My husband took the phone and told Tom that if he ever contacted us again, he would report him for harassment. After that, Tom never called again. Later, on the way home from the hospital, we saw Tom working at a convenience store. It seemed no hospital would hire him anymore. He told us his wife and child had left him, but I didn't feel any sympathy. We decided not to go to that convenience store again. The following year, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She is adorable, and no matter what, I'm determined to raise her with love and care. My husband has been smitten with her since the day she was born, and I have to make sure he doesn't spoil her too much.